60% of today's student will end up in jobs that don't exist today.
My 13-year-old is going to school with other kiddos that have substantial social media followings.
Yeah.
And they're wrestling through this question of like, who are you? Who are you supposed to be?
When I look at this course, it's not necessarily only for entrepreneurs. There's something about building an entrepreneurial mindset.
Bold visionaries, faithful disruptors. Some call them crazy, but they are called to create. Under his power, for his glory. The Faith-Driven Entrepreneur Podcast.
Welcome back to the Faith-Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. As parents, we always want our kids to start further than we have and to take things further than we have. And today is a fun episode where we get to debut and announce the Faith-Driven Entrepreneur for Teens trailer in partnership with Lecrae, Kobe Cotton, Jessica Kim, Jeremy Lin, David Platt, and so many other entrepreneurs around the world that are contributing to this new initiative. I'm excited to unpack this, talk about this with Dana, who leads our team with Faith-Driven Entrepreneur for Teens. Let's get started on this week's episode. So I think that there's no better way to start off this podcast than other than to say, go green.
I'm wearing green.
There you go.
I mean, how can you not?
I mean, seriously. For those that don't know, my grandfather was a huge Michigan State fan. Actually created that Spartan logo.
I still need to dive deeper into he created Sparty logo.
Well, the first time that you hear it, like when Grandpa tells you, you're like, yeah, sure, Grandpa stories. Like the fish was this big, then it's this big. But it was surreal when you found out it was true. And many people have heard me say this, but we actually found out the legitimacy of it at his funeral about 10 years ago. And it was kind of, it was.
So you didn't believe it was true until
well,
then?
you did.
That's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, no. You did. It's an unfortunate time to hear about it, but you've heard about it and you believed it. And there was all these, Grandpa was just a master storyteller.
Yeah.
But then when his coworkers and the local, radio channel talked about it, it's it made it just another level of real. And when Sparty showed up at his service and walks out with us with the casket, man, it was a moment where you couldn't bleed any deeper, that green and white, than that time.
That's so fun.
So it was fun when we connected.
Yeah.
Our first time Michigan State that has come up on the job search, maybe here for Faith Driven. But it was fun to connect
you
the
have
dots.
it in your bio, right? So it's public knowledge.
It's out there.
My parents have had season tickets for, 50 years. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's been around for a while. I mean, I haven't been there for 50 years.
Yeah. But we find out they maybe had seats right next to each other for 50 years.
Maybe.
Who knows?
I don't know.
So who are you? Where do you come from for people that are just tuning in, hearing about your story?
Yeah, well, I'm so glad to be on the team and be here. So I live in Michigan, West Michigan, Grand Rapids area, and I'm deeply passionate about kids and young people and teens, and I think that's what brought me here. I mean, when did we first spoke in 2020?
A couple years ago.
Early days in Faith Driven, and just saw later on that you were starting the teen initiative and was so excited about it because, kind of back up, my husband and I started an Acton Academy in Grand Rapids for our kids, for our community kids, very entrepreneurial spirit type school. We've had
and those that aren't familiar with Acton, what is Acton? Just kind of give everybody context there.
So Acton Academy started in Austin, Texas. Very early micro school movements. Now in 2025, there are so many different options for education. And Jeff and Laura Sandifer are the founders, and I knew them from a job that I had in Austin. And I remember reading the content on the website for Acton Academy and just thought to my own self, man, if that existed when I was a kid, I would have absolutely loved it because it's independent learning.
Yeah.
Right? You're in charge of your own education and you need to take ownership of that. And so it just spoke to me so deeply that when we were at that time living in Austin, then moved back to Michigan and we're started thinking about having kids and they were thinking about opening up to affiliates. We were like, let's do this. We've got to, it just made sense for us. And then kind of a sideline project that they also started in Austin was a children's business fair. So we started doing that too. And actually in 3 weeks, we're 3 weeks away from our 9th annual in West Michigan, which has hundreds of kids every year starting businesses, 5 years old to 14 years old. And it's just a fun opportunity for them. So all that to say, when you started talking about, faith-driven entrepreneur for teens, it just was like, what's going on? Like, what are y'all doing? I want to learn about it. And I want to see what you're doing. So full circle here.
Yeah, it's one of those fun moments. I mean, I think oftentimes when we see how God works, like sometimes you're like, man, with same passion, same mission.
Yeah.
And then there's a question of like, well, what's the right timing?
Right.
And I remember you were one of my first conversations when we just talked about like, hey, we're doing something with teens. There's a kindred spirit into it. And it's fun years later to say, now it's the right part of the mission.
Yeah.
It's the right timing. And to be coming on board the team here is just a fun season to see what God's up to in that.
Yeah, so fun.
So when you think about that, let's dive in quick.
Yeah.
What are the parents, teens, what's everybody struggling with this moment? What's the pain points that people are experiencing?
Oh man, there's a lot happening with young people. I mean, we see record anxiety, depression. I mean, you see a lot of that. A lot of teens have been flipped upside down with the pandemic, right? I mean, think about that. Those are their formative years, maybe 9, 10, 11 years old. And then they get into their teens and they're trying to figure out which way is up. There's just a lot happening. And I think, but also what it allows us to do in this moment is to really find, like, who are they? Like, let's stop and we'll get into all of those details. But so we find teens in this place where they might be struggling a little bit. They are so busy, like just so busy with activities. I mean, you know this, you teens, you could talk about this better than anybody, right? But so busy with activities, sports, family, friends, expectations, all of that. And then we drop on top of them. You've got to make these really big decisions about your life. And they're like, how do I do that? Right. And so I think we're in this moment of like, how do we peel that back and try and pull the pressure off to then help inform some of those decisions before they make really big ones.
Yeah. And there's so much of these like lies that like has been pushed at an earlier and earlier age. Like I think there's sometimes we have this feeling like, we can wait to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I think if what we're seeing, like even with the creator economy, I mean, you know, my 13-year-old is going to school with other kiddos that have substantial social media followings.
Yeah.
And they're wrestling through this question of like, who are you? Who are you supposed to be? And they're being pushed with this lie at an earlier age of, you know, go make something of yourself.
Yeah.
Go make money and then you'll belong.
Yeah.
And we're having to sort that out at a really, really young age these days.
And publicly, by the way.
Yeah.
Right.
All out in the open in front of everybody.
All on social media. Everybody else can see it and see what you're creating and judge what you're making, right? All of that is happening all at once.
And then to compound that, it's interesting because we've got 16, 13, and 11 at home.
Mm-hmm.
And like the pressure of figuring out these conversations earlier is real because of the costs of college education, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, gone are the days when you could go to college undecided and say, just go figure it out with this very expensive price tag kind of associated with it. And I think more and more, it's not only parents, but even also universities are saying, man, we would love to be working with people that have a plan or a framework, or at least we've kind of like expressed like kind of some ideas of what we want to be when we grow up. But the cost of college is a pushing factor, it seems like, of this conversation to figure things out.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's do this. I know we've talked about this.
Yeah.
And I know we've heard about it. But what we're now today, it's real.
Yeah.
It's real. Yeah. So let's go ahead and show this 3-minute trailer to show everybody a little bit about what you and the team are working on and what's here. So let's go ahead and watch this trailer for Faith-Driven Entrepreneur for Teens.
All right, entrepreneurship is a funny word, often misspelled and misunderstood. And yet it's everywhere we look. This isn't just for tech titans like Musk, Zuckerberg, and Bezos. Behind every doctor, lawyer, dentist, roofer, musician is a potential business. From trick shots and influencers to athletes, all of us are stepping into a call to create. A decade of the hit show Shark Tank has fueled rapid growth and redefined the idea for a generation. Now today, there are 582 million people building and taking risks. Estimates say there may be as many as 180 million Christian entrepreneurs in the world. We're all likely to go pro in something other than sports. So what if we spend a fraction of the time we'd otherwise spend on practices preparing for how we might invest in the rest of our lives? This course and its global community is about stepping into a call to create that's been with us from the beginning. God put man and woman in the garden to create, build, and care. Thousands of years later, we see that in our DNA. From the first building blocks of Legos to lemonade stands or the creator economy. It's more than just hard work, ambition, passion, and perseverance. It's starting with an understanding that we partner with the Almighty God. Not placing our faith in ourselves, but understanding we partner with Him to chase the dream and honor Him. More than any other time in history, side hustles and startups attract the next generation of leaders to consider their work and career through new lenses of possibility. And with rising education costs, we need to have a better idea of what we want to do before we invest tens of thousands of dollars in a college degree. Through incredible teaching and biblical truth from friends like David Platt,
And it's a gift. We share it generously as we pursue God's command to care for people and the world around us.
Colby Cotton from Dude Perfect, serial entrepreneur Jessica Kim, and athlete and investor Jeremy Lin. We'll take you literally around the world to see powerful, real-life stories of how entrepreneurs are redefining what it means to combine business and ministry. Through a unique gift assessment tool with New York Times bestselling author, Pat Lencioni will help us explore the unique ways God has wired you and craft the purpose as you take your next steps. Parents and students will be equipped to learn, grow, and discuss these questions in digestible 15 to 20-minute lessons. Now, these can be great to use to replace all the other distractions on our screens. Use these as dinner time discussions, nightly devotions, or weekend breakfast with your teenager. You can also use them as a summer activity or even in your youth group or a classroom setting. You'll also have access to monthly activity guides to help build skills in exploring business ideas, learning from others. And in the coming months, you'll also have access to online business plan competitions and much more. God has given us the power to create with Him. Let's discover our call to create and impact the world around us.
Man, I love that. If we could only have Lecrae be a part of every single one of those videos.
So good.
So good. So good. But like there's so much in such a short time that really speaks to. It really pushes into this is a conversation that needs to happen.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
When you think about this course, and if you were walking through that, I know Lecrae did it, but like expound on that. Like what's the 1, 2, 3 that we're trying to do here with this course? How are we looking to solve this problem?
Yeah. So first we dive into just who are you, right? Like some of those early phases of trying to understand what are some of these gifts that God has given me and having the young person understand what those are. I think it really comes out in Lecrae's story where he just started figuring it out, right? And one of the cool things in his episode or the session that he does talks not only about him as an artist, but him as a creator of a business, a full business, and leading people and how he had to grow in those skills and what skills he had early on and then, built over time, which I think is so great. So that's the first one. The next one is we just want them to have a redemptive imagination. What might be possible, right? So I think, Justin, when I look at this course, it's not necessarily only for entrepreneurs, right? There's something about building an entrepreneurial mindset, right? And those that are listening know this, like very entrepreneurial. They're not listening to the Faith Driven Entrepreneur podcast if they're not entrepreneurs or interested in at some point, right? And then I think we recognize as entrepreneurs, the things that we've learned and how we've been able to build our business is because we did it.
Yeah.
We just kind of like struggled through it, right? So it's not always I learned these things in school. It's I took a step and then I took another step
Yeah.
and I learned it because there wasn't necessarily a book
Yeah.
to learn from. And then thirdly, it's just what is out there? What are these conversations that you can have, and how do you connect and get exposure to other ideas, opportunities that might be out there? Because that's so crucial too. And our young people don't have exposure to all of those
Yeah.
ideas.
So let's go back to that 1, 2, 3 and unpack each one of these things.
Yeah.
And so the first one we talk about identity, there is like 1,001
Yeah.
different personality tests. There's a lot of great tools out there. We don't want to take anything away from that. But the thing that I loved most about Working Genius is it's like you didn't need a decoder ring to figure it out.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes when parents and kids were having this conversation and it's, Enneagram and it's this and it's like wing 3, 8, 4 number, like it's intimidating.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
Right.
very intimidating.
Yeah.
What I love about what Pat and the team have done is they've made it accessible.
Yeah.
So that any parent can say, okay, let's have this conversation of like, which of these do you fit in? And it's also recognizing like it's going to change.
Yeah.
Like a 13-year-old, 18-year-old, they're going to have a lot of movement kind of over the next couple of years as they kind of discover and discern who God's kind of made them to be.
Yeah.
But I love that accessibility of that
For sure.
language.
And they don't have to be adults in the working world to understand that, right? When you think about somebody that's a galvanizer, which is, one of the Working Genius, they're probably doing this with their friends.
Yeah.
Like they're probably already doing it. And then they can start to recognize when they're walking in those strengths immediately.
Yeah.
Right. So you go through an assessment and you can be like, hey, I can see that I'm functioning this way and my friend is functioning in a different way. And you start to recognize the strengths and maybe weaknesses of others. Can I just say one thing? Because I think this is so important when we talk around identity and especially strengths kind of through the Working Genius. I tell this to young people a lot. The only time that you have to be good at everything is at this point in their life. High school, college, right? Those are the times where it's like we expect A's across the board. We expect perfection on everything, but that's not the real world.
No, it's not.
Actually the real world. And so how might we start having these conversations now to say, hey, maybe that's not your strength right now, but maybe it is somebody else's.
Yeah.
And how could we then help to lift up someone else? And I think when we talked about pressure earlier, what this can do is bring that level of pressure down a little bit, right? To just be like, wait, maybe it doesn't always have to be me in every single scenario.
And it's amazing how easy it is to bring that pressure down. When I think about like our 16-year-old that went through it for the first time, I don't know if it like he just decided to pay attention to the results at like 11 o'clock at night. He's not one of us that's like checking our emails all the time. So once every day, week, whatever it is, he was checking his email. He dives into it. He is so excited about it. He busts into our bedroom at 11 o'clock at night and he just can't wait to talk about it, because it's not necessarily that like probably some of that was new and it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I've never thought about this. But it was this place of affirmation.
For sure.
And like, even if your kid, you're like, oh, they're probably a galvanizer. Mm-hmm. But then when they see that, it's like it kind of like makes it like official.
Yeah.
In a way that like it creates place for like what we're trying to do, conversation about this. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing just how that affirmation and that process really just kind of sparks that, just like, man, I want to have that conversation. Right. I want to be understood and express that.
Yeah. Can I also say that this is a really amazing opportunity for the adults in their life to step in, right? So when we're talking about identity, when we're talking about purpose and meaning and these things that are starting to swirl in the lives of young people, this is where the parent, the grandparent, the mentor, where they have the opportunity to step in and help call that out. Right? Because they're not always going to see it. The young person isn't. But man, if you can walk up to them and be like, I saw the way you led today. We try and do this with my kid. He's my 10-year, I have a 10 and 12-year-old, so they're still quite young. Yeah. But, out on the baseball field, my 10-year-old is one of the older ones on the team, and he's such a leader. And so we try to constantly call out those gifts and call out those skills, but then also in other people, when you start to see it in other people, so then they it's thinking like an entrepreneur. Like I keep going back to that because it's a recognition of what's happening around you, but also asking questions to find more information and, just being curious.
Yeah, it's just amazing just how much when you identify it and you see it and then you speak it over your kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at our 11-year-old, in those frustrating moments of parenting, my wife is like, oh, she's going to be an entrepreneur. She's not a rule follower.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's funny for my wife and I,
Yeah.
but actually as we've seen those pieces in her and we've affirmed her in that, like she kind of carries it like a badge of like encouragement that somebody is seeing that in a time when, again, every kid at that age that has that like, oh, you got to be perfect with everything you wear to thing you do, that it's giving her that freedom to see like, hey, this is who God's created me and it's different and it's unique. And I want to move on to the second piece because I think that this is, this is fun. It's fun to really show like the imagination. And when I think of imagination for me early on, this is going to date myself, but
That's okay.
that's probably,
I think we're right.
we're long past that. Yeah, we're long past that. But a game that I loved so much growing up, I don't know if you played this, but where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
Of course. It was a show too.
It turned into a show.
Yeah.
It turned into a show. But early on, there was this game and it was like this adventure.
Yeah.
Of like, it sparked an imagination of the world. And for me personally, it ignited this love of travel.
Yep.
And if you were to say like, what we're trying to do here is we are trying to spark this imagination and get outside the box. Because for most of us growing up, it was like, oh, you got to be the singer, the preacher, the teacher.
Yep.
It's progressed. But like some people are like, oh, well, you just have a business to evangelize. Well, that's one part of it, but the beauty of this study is not only the diversity of industries or majors, if you will, or degree fields that people, when they think of it from a college context, but also the diversity of how people are living out their faith in that. And I love that about this series. What are some of the things, stories, when you look at it, is there a story in there that really, connects with you?
Yeah, I mean, I love Phil Vischer's story of VeggieTales, creator of VeggieTales, right? So when his is the story of failure, and he talks about it very clearly of, I built this incredible thing and created this incredible thing, and then I unfortunately lost it, but is able to see God's hand in that as well. Obviously that's the favorite, one of the favorites. We love the Dude Perfect story because we're in that phase at my house, and so it's fun to hear Kobe's story, but all of them are a little bit different, and I think you hit on this of sparking love of travel for you. I think I continually, early in our days starting in Acton, I continually went back to this study that said the average junior in high school has only been exposed to 7 careers, which is your teacher, your doctor, like librarian maybe, right? Like not very many careers because you just don't know. Okay, it's 2025 now. AI is changing everything. Everything is changing so quickly. And then we have other statistics at the same time that 60% of today's student will end up in jobs that don't exist today.
Yeah, but before the time they exit college, like we're talking like within a 4 or 5 year time span.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what mindset do you have to be the ones that are creating the future, not the ones that are just depending on what exists today, because it's going to be a very small percentage that actually could be an opportunity for them. And that's what these conversations spark, is somebody asked about something a different way, or they asked a question, or they heard from someone else. So we're exposing them to 11, 12 businesses within the span of 12 sessions where they can just say, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I didn't know. And then you can dive into, and I don't know how much detail we'll get into the actual course, but you can dive into like when you're in your local area and you want to go see a business, you're just looking at it from a different lens and asking just different questions. So the spark, I believe, is so important in the exposure, right? The exposure to ideas is so important, and we have so much of that.
The exposure to it, but I love what you're hitting on is like machine learning, predictive tasks are being kind of automated, right? If we just look at it at that base level, AI machine learning is automating predictive tasks.
Yes.
So what does the future look like? It's all about the creative. Right. It's all about the curious. It's all about the prompts. It's all about the questions.
Yeah.
And so when I think about like our generation, that was the old adage of like, if you're going to start a business, have an accounting degree or whatever it is, so that some things will translate. If you're going to want to think about the marketplace in the next 20, 30, 40 years, it's going to be having both the courage and the vision to find those moments of creativity and adding value.
100%.
And when you're looking at this, it's not like you don't have to be the 12-year-old, hey, I've already, declared I'm going to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
No, this is like core to anything of what we're doing. Shark Tank, whatever it is, it's all made it mainstream.
Right.
AI, I think, is going to push it to the point where this is going to be a tool that so many of us are going to need to have no matter what we do.
Right. Yeah. Curiosity is a superpower.
Yeah, I love that. It's a painful thing when they're 11 years old, but we've got to find a way to harness that and redo it. It's the best. It is, except when there's those rules. Yeah, all right. But it's a fun conversation. I think if we're hitting the last thing kind of before we go into some other conversations it's the conversation. I mean, I think about this in much of this series. It was fun kind of how it kind of came together. But one of the sparks for me was just I would travel and we'd come film these incredible stories. And, I'd come home and if you catch me on the weekend, I mean, yeah, some sporting events are worth watching, like Sparty, of course, but
Most of the time. Sometimes.
Sometimes
Depends on the sport.
Yeah, fair point. But like then there's other things that like, man, I love what's happening, what God's doing in this movement so much that, on a Saturday, I'd watch some cut of a story that was coming together.
Yeah.
And what I loved, and it took me by surprise, is my 11-year-old would just sit on the couch with me.
Yep.
And she would watch the story. She'd ask a couple of questions, not much in the moment. But then I'll never forget, as I'm her basketball coach, we're driving 3 or 4 girls to a game. And all of a sudden, from the back seat, Dad, hey, what was that story about? And there was something that was planted in that story that struck her, and she wanted to share it with her friends. And so then what did we do when we got back to the house? She wanted to share the story with 3 or 4 of her friends. To think at 11 years old, she's so engaged by this curiosity. She wants to show it. She wants to share it. She wants to tell it. And you think about most formative experiences in our lives, like it's a story.
Oh, for sure.
It's something that captures
Especially
us.
for young people today. I mean, right? That content is so heavy in their life. And so you need those moments in order to catch their attention. I had the same thing. So we were week before we launched the course, and I'm going through kind of like final button up, final details. And they're both come in and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, well, I'm, just kind of doing some reviews, checking this. Well, we want to watch. They both come. They sit next to me on my bed, and they're just sitting there. And it was getting late, like really late. I'm like, you guys, you got to go to, well, you're not going to finish it without us, are you? Like, we're going to watch it together tomorrow. I'm like, well, I kind of have to finish it. And they're like, well, okay, then when are we going to watch the rest? I mean, they were in it. They were so excited. And I love that. It really does create that space to have those conversations. Like you mentioned, it's not that you're having the conversation and it's going really deep right then, but something is happening and it's piquing curiosity in a certain way with them. So yeah, we had a similar thing.
Well, I love it. It's fun to see this hinge moment also for the movement, because I think for so many years we have been about trying to kind of declutter, if we're saying politely, kind of our bad ways of thinking. But we've also kind of had some like traumatic moments where it feels like we're a hospital or ER clinic trying to, get people to change from pursuing the worries of the world to saying, what is it that truly matters? And now we have this chance to say, man, we could save our kids all that heartache.
For sure.
We could save our kids all the mess of being enthralled with all of the wrong things. But it's up to us as parents
100%.
to start the conversation, because culture is not going to be singing this tune. They're going to be still pushing the success culture, the, hey, you could be the next hit of Shark Tank kind of culture. And we're going to have to really redefine kind of what's the story within the story. So I want you to break down a couple of things as we kind of come to a wrap here. Let's dispel some things here. And you talked about one of these earlier, but let's go back to it to make sure we hit it. Is this a course only for the 11-year-old entrepreneur that's already started their business?
No, not at all. I think that it's valuable. There are business topics for sure each of the stories is told through the lens of an entrepreneur and through business. And there are exercises that make you think through business, yes, but it's so much more than that. And I do think that it will spark something for all young people, whether they're interested in business or not. And I actually think that that frame is really helpful because you're not just coming in as a Bible study but it is. There's scripture in there and there are scriptural concepts that we're introducing through a different lens. So I think it's applicable for all young people. I think it is helpful to go be alongside maybe an adult or, somebody at church. We've got youth groups going through it. We have small groups going through it. We have families going through it together because there is that opportunity, as we've been talking about quite a lot, to have those conversations, but it is definitely relevant to those whether they're interested in business or not.
Yeah. And I love that. And you hit on this idea of like there's multiple ways that we can use it. We're early on in this journey. And so we want to hear from people
For sure.
that are listening, that are going through this or taking their kids through it, the ways that it can be used.
Yeah.
When we've thought about it, at first there's the individual level of like, this could be a great, summer activity. We always have those camps and courses, and sometimes you can't always take them somewhere, but you need something for people to go through at home. So it's a course that people can go through kind of in that summer side of things. They can go through it individually. They can go through it as a family. But then we also want to say, hey, what does it look like for us to partner with churches and schools? Can you talk about that? That really lends itself really to your experience and kind of what you guys have done.
Yeah, for sure. So when you have, a lot of schools, especially private schools now have, entrepreneurship class or a business class or
it's like an elective kind of thing.
Yeah, like they have a lot of these things and they're looking for curriculum. So we've had a lot of individuals reach out to us. We've had a lot of introductions from the entrepreneurs. So thank you, those of you that are listening that also get this and really want to see this go into your schools and into your churches. We love those introductions because the value's already there when it's being passed off. So we have schools that are saying, hey, we want to put this into place in the fall, right? Because we're just at that moment now where we're going into summer break and they're getting ready for their curriculum for the fall, where they're going to drop it into 12 weeks or however it may look for them. We've got some summer programs with churches, or we've got small group programs coming together. And you really don't have to be a facilitator. Like, it's really built out fully already. Like the questions are there are workbooks, there is dive deeper, all of it is already set. I mean, as long as you can like press pause on a question and maybe probe a little bit more, it's pretty hands-off. It's not hard to take someone through it. So there are quite a lot of opportunities to utilize it.
I want to issue that as a challenge to entrepreneurs that are listening to this. I think about growing up in Michigan, whether it was a T-ball team or whatever it was, there's always some sort of like sponsor or person on the back of the jersey, some local business owner that said, hey, this is where I want to invest or support. When I think about this, there's a real opportunity in just what you mentioned, is that entrepreneurs, for probably even less than what it might be to sponsor that baseball team, they could bring this to their kids' school or to the private school there in their community. And they could be the one there to visit and to kick it off and to share their experience.
100%.
And the amount of fulfillment that can give both ways is just huge, to know that there might be dozens of kids they could think about their careers and businesses differently just because you took that step to say, hey, what does it look like for me to facilitate this conversation in my church and school? And so we've been really intentional, thanks to a lot of generous donors and partners, to really make it accessible to kind of do that. So if somebody's listening to this and they're saying, man, I'd love to do that for my school, for my church, what do they need to do? How would they get involved with that?
I think they can, if they come to our website, we have forms to set up to book a call and just connect with me. I mean, I'd love to connect with them. There's other people on our team that would love to connect with them and have a conversation of what that might look like.
Faith-driven entrepreneur for teens. You want your teen to pursue success and live with significance. But in a world fueled by greed and self-promotion, they need a better story than what social media sells. Here's the good news. There's a growing movement of faith-driven entrepreneurs using business to solve real problems, serve others, and point to God in every decision. In Faith-Driven Entrepreneur for Teens, Kobe Cotton, Lecrae, and David Platt takes students on a global journey, spotlighting real builders in media, tech, real estate, music, and more. In partnership with Pat Lencioni's Working Genius, students discover their God-given strengths, expand their imagination, and spark conversations about life beyond high school. Help your teen dream bigger and build a life of purpose. Learn more about Faith-Driven Entrepreneur for Teens. Visit faithdrivenentrepreneurforteens.org.
Yeah, you've probably seen something pop up here on screen as we're talking about this. And if you're watching this, is that you'll see some of the links to it in great ways for people to get involved there. Talk about some of the other things that, as we kind of come to a close here, some of the other things that are in the works when we think about maybe an event coming up here in the spring. What are some of the other things happening with Faith-Driven Entrepreneur for Teens?
Yeah, so we're early stages, right? Right now, we're still figuring out like, what does this course look like and how can we bring it to its full max capacity? So that's really the focus. One of the questions that we do get that we're thinking about and seeing, is this something that people are looking for? So we would love to know, if you're interested, is a level of coaching. So it's a lot of content. It's really fast. It can be deep. And so we have the ability to walk alongside, or we do have the potential ability to walk alongside young people in doing these courses and going a little bit deeper in those conversations. So we'd love to hear from them.
Yeah.
Coaching is something that they're interested in, right? I don't know that we're going to do a we build it and you will come, or if you want to tell us you want it and then we'll build it. But then we would like to get groups together next spring for the teen audience. I know this is something that we're talking about with the church partnership team, of something that we can offer to the church partners as well. And so, yeah, a lot of exciting things coming.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff. Yeah, the coaching, we're really excited about it for parents that, really want somebody to facilitate the conversation, dive in a little bit deeper.
There's value in it not being mom and dad.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking, 16, 17, 18 years old, where it's like, okay, what do mom and dad really want out of this, right? So there is a huge value in someone that's not mom and dad coming in and saying, okay, let's really dive into who you are and what that means for you.
Yeah, excited about that.
Yeah.
Excited about this idea of an event that we might be able to have where, similar to other faith-driven events, that it could be an event hosted at a church or a school on a weekend where that they might be able to have that conversation between parents and kids, or just kids, or whatever that might look like. We're still trying to figure that out, but stay tuned for that there in the spring. The other thing I'm really excited about is the interviews and podcasts. Love Laura's opportunity to connect with other parents and you together, interviewing other parents in ministry that have kind of walked through some of this. Can you shed a little light on where that might be going?
Yeah. So we are excited to what we've found as we've kind of gone through maybe past roster of those that are connected to the network. So many of you that are listening, and just said, what do they all have in common? And honestly, so many people that are entrepreneurs have entrepreneurial kids. And so our question was, why and how? And so what was that environment that you built in your home that encouraged them to thrive in their gifts, that encouraged them to grow in areas that you were able to call out of them? So we're really excited to start some of those conversations and just share that with the audience broader, of how might you create an environment at home that can help build or pull this out of your teens.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I am so excited about how God connects dots in the right timing, how he connected us years ago. Yeah. So thrilled for you, for Kelly, for Joy, for the team, Laura, just all the work of what's being done here. It's really fun seeing what God's doing.
Yeah. So much potential in our young people. And Gen Z is coming to the Lord all the time. I mean, in rapid numbers. And so excited about what he has for them, and just want to really ignite their hearts and passions in their faith and in him, rooted in truth. But then also, what does that mean in service to the world?
Amen. So friends, if you're listening to this, we often say that change starts with us and change starts at home. We can't unleash the next generation of faith-driven entrepreneurs if we don't start with our own kiddos. So I hope that what you have heard today is we've given you a tool and a gift to start a conversation about one of the things you're deeply passionate about, entrepreneurship, and how you've seen God at work in that conversation. So my encouragement today is do not let this pass by. Do not let these moments pass by. I know they're busy. I feel it. Kids' sports, always zipping around, but find time to expand their imagination, to discover who they are, and to begin those conversations. So like you heard Dana talk about, some simple next steps to take: download the course, go through it with your kiddos, or they can go through it on their own over the summer or over the school year to discover what God has created in them and expand their imagination. And the second thing, find ways that you might multiply this conversation. It's as simple as, could you be the person to start this conversation in your church? Go to the youth pastor, the pastor. Think about what it might look like to gift this, to donate this to the parents and the families there in your church, or maybe in the school where your kids attend. But find ways to expand this movement. This movement only goes as far as all of us collectively take it. Like you hear us say often, this is your movement. We are simply here to partner with you, to support you in it. It's a joy to be in it together. Thanks for being with us here this week. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Come for content, stay for community. Join a faith-driven entrepreneur group online or in person. No cost, no catch. Visit faithdrivenentrepreneur.org. That's faithdrivenentrepreneur.org.